Okay. Start. Okay. Hello. Welcome back to whatever the heck this is. My name is Bryn Moore. It's lovely to see you. I am not talking about MBTI today, at least not directly. Today, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different, and this is honestly what I really most want to talk about. And so I hope you're buckled in, because we're going to get a little, what would you say? We're going to get a little deep. Hashtag deep today. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about me, and we're going to be talking about the world, and we're going to be talking about what the world is. We're going to talk about a little bit about consciousness. We're going to talk about a little bit about MBTI. We're going to talk a little about Jung. But I think fundamentally, what I truly, as Bryn Moore, want to talk about more than anything is people and what the heck we even are, and maybe a little bit why we're even here. So if that sounds interesting at all to you, to hear about from just some random person on the internet, then welcome, and let's get right into it. Okay. Now, if I were to give a title, I'm sure you're already seeing the title now because you're in the future and I'm in the past. But if I could title this, just for whomever is currently listening, which no one else is because there's no one here, just me. But if I could title this, I would call it Individuation, understanding reality through understanding yourself. So, I have some notes here, which I happily had my wife help me with. So, actually, let me cut that for a second. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back. I realized I shouldn't mention my wife without wearing my wedding ring, because that seems a bit silly. Anyway, now I have it. Now I feel much better. I feel much more secure. So, basically what I want to talk about today is the origin of why I got into MBTI in the first place. And what the significance, the deeper significance of what MBTI even is. So, let me see. What did I write down here? Okay. So here's the core premise of what it is that I really want to talk about today. There is so much information in the world right now. Thank you, internet. Thank you, globalization. Thank you, the fact that I can talk to someone in Africa or Asia or Europe without having to know anything about those places. Although I think if you're going to talk to people from other places, you should know about their place as well. I think that's just something you should try to do. I think it makes the world more interesting to learn about other people. Anyway, there's so much information in the world right now, whether it's in the form of scientific knowledge and information, philosophical knowledge and information, religious knowledge and information. And it might seem like that's a good thing, to have a font of knowledge and information and therefore wisdom. And I think we often look into the past and think those poor people who didn't know about Plato's allegory of the cave, or didn't know about Socrates's, didn't know Socrates and his punishment for spreading wisdom and asking questions of people. Or we might say those poor people who didn't know about Buddhism, or those poor people who didn't know about Christ, or those poor people who didn't know about Thor and Odin. When now we have the opposite of that, which is we know about all these things, or we can know about all of these things, but we don't necessarily know them to the depth that people in the past understood their specific philosophies or their specific religions. And that's kind of a double-edged sword, and that's what I really want to talk about. Because there are so many versions of the truth out there. I'm already going way off course. This is my biggest struggle, and this is an MBTI related thing. Obviously, I'm an ENFP, so I see all these data points and I just want to grasp them all. But you know the meme where you can't hold all those, what are they, apples, melons, whatever they are. You can't hold them all. You can't hug every cat, so to speak. I wrote it down better here. I had to use my wife to whittle down, right? Because there's kind of a fractal thing happening here. The same reason that I can't think of everything that I want to talk about. I'm trying to find a linear thread by which to even broach all of these ideas that are out there in the zeitgeist that I'm interested in, and I'm interested in too many. And so how do you whittle it down? Well, interestingly, not ironically, but coincidentally, I think the way you whittle it down is exactly what the topic that I want to talk about. So, look, I'm already 7 minutes in, and I'm just now getting to the topic. 6 minutes, whatever. I think how do we even say this? I don't think I can do this, man. Now the person this is such a struggle. Doesn't help that I'm sick. I'm just collecting my thoughts. There are so many things that I want to talk about. There are so many things that I think are important to understand. And I think all of these philosophies have some form of truth in them. I think they have varying levels of truth. And how the hell do we discern the best truth? I gave an analogy of a scatter plot. All of these data points of wisdom and knowledge are like a scatter plot in each of our awarenesses. The more you learn, the more you're capable of dissecting and discerning. But without the knowledge of how to dissect and discern, you cannot establish your own best fit line, let alone communicate with someone else what your collective best fit line, and the best fit in this case would be the line of wisdom. How do we act in the world as individuals and as societies and as a collective species to make sure that we propagate only the best ideas into the future? It sounds absurd that any individual should even have the capacity or the ego to think that they have the right to even contend with ideas like this. And yet, I put it to you that that is exactly what we are all doing. We are all contending with the idea of how to act in the world for the betterment of ourselves, our families, our communities, and the world itself, and our species, and the world itself. So how do you do that? Okay, well, again, this is a fractal thing where I think my version of doing that is through things like MBTI. And I think that's what the Jung's individuation process is. And I think there are many ways to do this, and I think individuation itself has many different names throughout the world. I think it's the same thing that Christian monks were doing. I think it's the same thing that Buddhist monks are doing. I think it's the same thing that philosophers have done. I think it's the same thing that scientists are doing, is utilizing their self, capital S, self, to look at the world and then filter it through their understanding of themselves to then understand the world. There's an alchemical phrase that most of you have heard of, as above, so below. And to me, what that means is that one of the ways by which we understand the world outside of ourselves is by understanding the world inside of ourselves and then mapping those truths within ourselves to the truths outside of ourselves. And as science has understood more about the nature of the universe, that has only become more true, that is how the world operates. What we are, all the way to our cellular level, all the way down to our atoms, all the way up to our consciousness and our awareness, is the same system that acts itself in galaxies, in solar systems, in large biological systems, in societies. We know that this is effectively true. We effectively know that it's true. You can't know anything's true because we don't perceive all of reality. What is reality? Reality is bigger. Reality is the ultimate collection of all things that are, have been, or could be. Effectively. And there is no way by which any individual, intelligent, brilliant, wise, or otherwise, could ever understand reality completely. Bringing together the wisdom of many individuals amplifies the understanding of reality so much more than any individual alone could. By the way, I think that is the fundamental reason for marriage. Being able to have another human being that you can compare reality, your reality with their reality against, provides you not just twice the amount of perception of reality, but more than the sums of the parts, because you're able to pass ideas back and forth between each other such that you create profit. And to me, a way to understand profit in a non-economical way is, I had this wonderful idea that I loved for a good definition of profit. But effectively, profit is that which develops itself out of something that did not know. I'm going to not even try to define profit. Screw that. Skip that. Blah, 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 blah. The fundamental core of this video is individuation and Carl Jung, and Carl Jung's individuation and MBTI. Individuation, I'll read this because otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling for another 12 minutes. Individuation is understanding the lens which you perceive the world so that you can utilize your knowledge of yourself to better understand the world around you. Here's an analogy. A camera filter. You can know what a camera is, and you can see what a camera records of the world. However, without deeper knowledge of what filter that camera is utilizing, or the lens that camera is using, without understanding what each of those components are, then your perception of the world is inherently flawed, because what you're perceiving is being filtered constantly. And because it's being filtered constantly, you don't know what's being filtered out. And you don't know why what's not being filtered out isn't. So this is something that consciousness neuroscientists and psychoanalysts have been trying to investigate, whether or not they knew that's what they were investigating, for a very long time. And I think fundamentally, our current understanding of that process began with Carl Jung. I believe that the reason Carl Jung is a perfect lens by which to begin to investigate one's understanding of one's self is because that what his life was devoted to. When he began working, I don't think he knew that's what his life was devoted to. I don't think he possibly even understood that that was something that could come about of his life's work. But I think that is what he ended up at. And establishing the notion of individuation and cognitive functions and archetypes of individuals, what he was truly doing was suggesting and establishing the types and the filters by which humans observe and perceive and judge, possibly, the world around them and therefore reality itself. So, my belief is that A, by understanding ourselves, we can better understand the world. B, Carl Jung's psychoanalytical investigations into the machinations of the self through things like archetypes and cognitive functions are the most effective way to understand the self. Because I believe his investigations began at the origin of our modern world. So the early 20th century, we were becoming a globalized world whereby all cultures, philosophies, sciences, and religions were beginning to all merge and converge on each other, for better or worse. So it is not surprising that someone like Carl Jung began to become faced with the idea of these converging philosophies in a way that no people ever before had been faced with it, as far as we're aware, at least not on a global scale. You can look at places like China that grew incredibly fast and started learning from their cultures around them and neighboring philosophies, or the Roman Empire, or the Greeks, or the European Renaissance, where they started investigating, learning outside cultures, philosophies, and scientific methods, if you want to call it that. And each of these times brought to bear a deeper understanding of the world, not just by understanding and comparing cultures and philosophies, but in fact establishing profit, because they were able to look at the world outside of their own cultures, the self, compare what they understood of their own culture to the systems and the cultures outside of their own, and thereby better understood not just their own culture, but understood the outside culture, and then therefore able to establish and bring with them the best of what they had and the best of what was outside of themselves. So when Carl Jung came into his psychoanalytical process at a time where globalization was just beginning on a scale that, as far as we know, has never existed in human history, it makes perfect sense that that level of melting pot of ideas would necessitate a philosophy by which to discern its very state of globalized, universal on earth cultures, philosophies, etc. And I think that's what Carl Jung was doing, whether he realized it or not. Okay, now let me break this down. Individuation, according to Carl Jung, is the process that one truly understands themselves and becomes their true self, capital S, self. Now, that capital S self, again, as I said before, there are many words for this process, and there are many words for that self. One analogy that is often overlooked for some reason is Christ. So the Christian narrative is the religious philosophical expression of individuation as a species. Now, this is something I've played with before. Obviously, you can't really call it individuation anymore, because it's global, and of course, a global system, if you call it one system, can individualize because it's individual, but given that that's very pluralistic as a system, you wouldn't really say individual. I need to take a sip. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit sick, so I'm having ginger tea, and that's helping me focus. This is me focused. This is me linear. Apologies. Individuation on a global scale, special individuation, or I haven't had a name for it, some sort of collective individuation, which of course sounds like a perfect misnomer and oxymoronical. Anyway, all of that to say, my lens, I've discovered, is socio-emotional, so to speak, or psychological, not psychological research, because, again, not a lot of focus up here, not a lot of patience either, but I can focus best and have the most patience when I'm communicating with people and learning about them and discerning their idiosyncrasies. I'm deeply fascinated by psychoanalysis, and I do it best when I am face-to-face with people. I love typing people through MBTI. I think MBTI is a perfect system for, well, not perfect. I think MBTI is a wonderful system for understanding people. And I think the more people you can understand, the better you can understand reality. And I think that's the external side of it. And then there's the internal side of it of investigating yourself. When I learn about other people, for example, my wife, who is an INTJ, I know what her functions are, and I know what my functions are. And by understanding the difference between her NI, introverted intuition, and my NE, extroverted intuition, I can help synthesize what intuition is even doing, why it would even have this polar state, and what those functions on a society would even be. I have this belief that as humans became humans, and we were living in tribes as hunter-gatherers, our genes provided us a system that would help propagate our groups further, our lineages further into the future, and it utilized something akin to cognitive functions and what we would call MBTI, whereby certain percentages of, say, a tribe of 100 people would be ISTJs, certain percentages would be ESTPs, certain percentages would be ESFPs, certain percentages would be INTPs, etc. And I think that those numbers are capable of shifting within a tribe based off of the needs of the tribe. For example, if you need more people to go out and explore because you're running out of space, you'll have more ESTPs or more ESFPs or ENTPs or ENFPs. And all four of those each explore in a different way. If you need further stability and things are rocky and things are difficult, I believe there's some system by which your genes are going to provide for that group more ISTJs or SJs in general. Pause. Come on in. Hey, beautiful. Oh, you're fine. I'm just rambling. I've been rambling for 22 minutes so far. It feels like it's been 5. I'm also a little sick, so it's not going great. My head hurts so bad. Also, it's very difficult to talk about these things without the human feedback. I'm finding it might be best for me to write essays and just read them, because I've been just rambling. I don't think I've said anything interesting so far.
The first thing I told you, wasn't it?
I hate you.
You said, I don't think that's me.
Well, I think I can do this if I'm not sick, and I think if I bullet point better for myself.
Do you want to stop for today?
No, I think I'm going to finish my thought, and then I'll see if I can edit it down to something useful.
Okay. Hopefully this makes it good.
It might, because it's relevant to exactly what I've already been saying.
I'm sure you're doing better than you think you are.
I doubt it. All right, I'm going to keep going. You can just do whatever you're doing. Okay. I completely forgot my place. Oh, if you're in a tribe, this is what I was talking about. If you're in a tribe where I'm talking about how I think cognitive functions, our genes provide cognitive functions and MBTI types in a community, but depending on that community's needs.
That's a useful thing. That's an important thing.
Yes, but I've basically just been spitting out all of the ideas I have in no particular order.
Cool.
Okay, great.
I can't wait to
So this is how my life is. This is why. This is again, and what I also said was that I think this is the fundamental reason for things like marriage. Is that you get these two belief structures and you can compare them against each other and both benefit from it.
Very much.
And there's some definition of profit in there that I couldn't remember my definition of profit that I thought of. Couldn't remember it. It's written down somewhere in one of my many, many books that I've taken notes in or maybe on my phone or computer.
Technically just added value. Like actual value.
Yeah, added value, for sure. Where was I? So anyway, that's I think it's in our genes, specifically in our genes. There's some mechanism that allows for our cognitive functions to propagate themselves based on the necessity of what our tribes need. Why is that relevant? Good question. This is really hard with you just looking at me.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I'll go else.
You could just go about your stuff. You can watch just listen, but yeah. So why is this even relevant? As I said, I think this is okay. Perfect. I haven't even gotten to this part yet, so you're going to be flabbergasted that I haven't even said this yet, Paige. Why am I even talking about all of this? Well, as I said earlier, understanding yourself is a filter, is a lens by which you can better understand the world. How would that even work? Well, understanding... Sorry, my attention is diverted. Given that there's far too much information to perceive in the world. I forget what the number was. It's something like 5 million bits per second our senses provide us of the world around us, which I don't even know what that would be. Super mega gigabytes? I don't know what that is. I think something 500,000 per second or 5 million. Some huge number. So our brains literally cannot process all of that information. So what our brains do for us is they limit that. They limit it for us and by establishing a hierarchy of value, right? A hierarchy of value of information, such that the same thing that just happened to me when my beautiful wife came in. All I wanted to do was look at her and talk to her, because to me that's the most important thing in the world. And this video is not, and this camera isn't, and nothing else matters if she's in the room, which is a nice thought, but it's also distracting. And I happen to be someone who's very easily distractible and not very capable of focusing, and that is one of the mechanisms of an ENFP. Now, I love value, but that ADHD-ness that ENFPs are known for comes with a cost. It comes with a benefit as well, which is that I love measuring value. It's why I'm so fascinated about talking to people. It's why I can focus best when I'm psychoanalyzing somebody else or talking about psychoanalyzing other people. But it comes with the cost of the fact that I will tend toward that which I think has more value in that moment, which makes it very difficult. Movie recording has been stopped automatically. The maximum recording time has been reached. Okay, continuing. The cost of the ENFP ADHD brain constantly wanting to only engage with that which is perceived to have the highest value is that I am not good at doing menial work, even if that menial work would in the long run be better and more beneficial for me to engage with. This is why the individuation process for an ENFP tends toward developing extroverted thinking and introverted sensing. Introverted sensing, especially coupled with extroverted thinking, are the two most powerful tools for focus and collation, or hierarchical value deconstruction, which can then be used to compartmentalize and shift, as if in groups of information, putting things on back burners, for example, physically delegating mental tasks. And then, of course, introverted sensing is the function that allows for disregarding that which provides highest stimulation, because it is rooting oneself in time. It is introverted sensing provides the ability to combine the past, present, and future self into one that exists in the present. Coincidentally, extroverted intuition, in my mind, seems to be the opposite, which is that the present self becomes rooted nowhere, and the past, present, and future self exist in the present, or in the past and the future, almost because there's two versus the one, the future and the past versus the present. You throw a dart and you're going to be more likely to hit one of the 2/3 rather than the 1/3, which is the present. I don't know if that made any sense, but I think that's what NE does, and it's why someone like me defaults to desiring to provide my attention to something that has a higher perceived value, even at the cost of long-term value, would you say, generation. And that's a problem, and that's why my notes look like this. I don't know if you can see that. It's also why my notes look like this. It's why my notes are in 10 different books at the moment. Anyway, the point is, as an ENFP, my individuation is through engaging with my, what I guess is sometimes called my shadow self, ISTJ. And it's not the same as the Jungian shadow, but there's the shadow of the emotional self, and there's the shadow of the mental self. And I don't know if Jung ever talked about this, because again, haven't provided enough focus to read all of his works, just kind of going with the gist of it. That's only partially true. It's partially a joke. I've read and listened to a lot, and I've synthesized my own understanding through my experiences and investigations of the world and of myself, which is how one develops personal knowledge and wisdom, because the TESI system is more focused on learning technical and specific knowledge through things like reading and listening and studying. Interestingly, the NEFI system is more personal, more emotional, more exploratory, but it also develops its own system of knowledge. And the point is, you need to mesh these two things together. So my individuation process, again, is through ISTJ. That's sort of my mental shadow. And it is why I would be best served by being forced to collect my thoughts in a linear fashion, which I am so failing to do so right now. So you are all being what would you say? You're all being, I can't think of the words, but basically you're having to suffer through my exploratory, philosophical exploration mind. Apologies. If you followed it all, congrats. You're crazy. Point is, I'll edit that out probably. This is my actual point. My individuation process is through the structure and the systematization of an ISTJ. I believe if I can bring that into myself, that is the individuation process for me. And by doing so, I will profit so much more than if I refuse to engage with those factors, those cognitive functions of TE and SI. I also believe that by individuating in that way, I will more fully understand myself, A, understand myself, B, therefore understand the world around me, C, have a more potent capacity to express myself to the world, and therefore D, have the world understand me better. So there's so much profit in all of that. I will understand the world will understand me better. We can all understand each other if we all go through this process. And again, I think the reason for exploring all of that in Carl Jung's individuation process and MBTI is so that we can collectively bring our minds together to better understand even more than any 1, 2, or 1,000 people could understand, and to understand what we want out of the world, to find our meaning, to find our purpose, to find where we belong, because we all belong, because we were all brought here onto this world and given a mind that perceives and makes decisions. And it seems like in a world where there is so much information out there, and there's so much to perceive, and there are so many decisions to be made, there are forces that would like to steal our attention and to make decisions for us. And I don't think anyone should have to tell any of us that that's not good. And I finally believe that one could come about this knowledge and wisdom of their own accord without reading anyone, and someone else still could come about this knowledge and wisdom by reading as much as they possibly could. But by combining those two things, being discerning and investigative, whether that's an exploratory investigation or it's a collated, systematic investigation, and whether that discernment is through understanding. Well, my camera just died, so no surprise there, because I can't systematize anything. The point is just keep learning.